Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. Today we're going to do a quilting play-by-play where we watch some GoPro footage of me quilting on my long arm, and I talk through the decisions I'm making and the stitches that I'm doing, so that way you guys can get inspired and maybe replicate some of these on your next quilt. Today I'm using two really simple stitches that we cover in our Intro to Free Motion Quilting course. In that one we cover 4 basic quilting stitches and then show you how to modify them so you can get a custom look on every single quilt. We're going to use in this one the Wavy line and the Swirl. So if you're interested in learning more about it, definitely check out that course. It's free to take and the pattern is also free if you get a kit from us. And when you're done, you have a whole quilt to put together, either doing it as quilt as you go or working on your long arm. So that way you can show off your samples and pull it out from time to time if you need inspiration on what to do next. So before we get into watching the playback of me doing quilting and talking through it, I want to tell you just a little bit about Stashin with Stephanie. This pattern, Galactic, was one that I designed inspired by the fabric that we sent out to our members. This is Dreamscape from Figo Fabrics, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Every month we get in 15 fabrics from, sometimes 16, but usually 15 fabrics from a brand new modern quilting fabric line. And I choose them based on what I think is the best modern collection to come out that month. And then I take a look at it and I think, what does this fabric want to become when it grows up? And I design a pattern that has been inspired by it. For this one, we have some large diamonds in the center using some of the lighter prints. And then we have our darker and medium prints surrounding that with to kind of just show off more of the color. And it really turned out very fun. Now this is put together with no Y seams. We've got a video tutorial that shows you how to put everything together as well if you're interested in that. I've already seen some of the comments on it that it makes so much sense for how to put together diamonds, and people who have sworn them off forever are now ready to give them a try again with the tips that we included in that video. So if you're a member, you're going to get 10 fat quarters for $32.49 a month. That's about a 20% off discount, the regular bundle. You're going to get the pattern for free every month. You're going to get access to all of our other Stashin with Stephanie patterns. It's not every pattern in the catalog, but it's a lot. It's over a $300 value that you get as soon as you join. And then you also are going to get a discount on my 2 fat quarter friendly books, Fat Quarter Workshop and Fat Quarter Patchwork Quilts. And you get to save additional money if you get additional fabric. You get 20% off any additional fabric from a Stashin with Stephanie line. And that's not just the one that you received. It goes back to any Stashin with Stephanie's that where we still have fabric for from before you joined. So for example, if you really like this pattern and you need it in your life and you want to get a quilt kit, we have some available, but we've already shipped this fabric out to our members. If you join before the end of the month, your first bundle will ship around the 20th of December. If you join December 1st or later, then you're looking at a January 22nd ship date for that. So keep that in mind of when you place your first order, but you have access to that discount and the free patterns right away as soon as you join while you're waiting for your first bundle to ship. So if you like this, you can sign up first and then go back and order and save 20% on the quilt kit. Plus you can get additional fabric for your backing and really just have a lot of fun with it. So if you are somebody who likes a good deal, or you're just trying to keep your quilting budget in check with all the inflation costs that are going on right now, you can sign up and essentially save 20% all year round on fabrics. Now again, it's not on everything, but it is on everything that is included with Stashin with Stephanie, and that's a lot of fabrics. So it can really keep you busy, and those patterns can help you work through your stash because they're all fat quarter and scrap friendly. All right, check that all out over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com, and let's watch this quilting play-by-play. All right, so what you're seeing here is I am quilting on the side of my quilt. This is going to eventually be covered up by the binding. I do this because it helps keep everything nice and square, and especially on a quilt like this where you have some bias edges, that's really important because it can get a little wonky, and that's really helpful. All right, so now I'm just doing a wavy line. I'm starting in the corner, and then I'm just heading out to the points, but that is kind of the block center there, or at least I'm treating it as that. And I kind of did the outsides all on their own, and then we're going to have to break thread and go to the middle of another block. But essentially I'm going from that side to the point and then back again, and I'm just kind of doing like a long wave as I get down there. I have no rhyme or reason, because if you try to replicate it, it just doesn't work. All right, so I loaded my quilt sideways on this. That way I could quilt an entire block half at once. So you can see I've started in my center, and I'm kind of wiggling my way out to get to each diamond point, and then I'm wiggling my way back out to the center. When you do this, you need a really good thread that you can kind of build up on, and it really does build up quite a bit here. I use Glide, and I really love it because you're able to do that. Actually, that's why I switched from a cotton fabric or cotton thread to a poly, is because I really like this dense quilting when it's called for. And you can't always do that and have it look nice when you are using a cotton. So I use the Glide 40 weight poly, and I'm able to really go over it and have some dense quilting where it almost looks like thread painting, and it works really well. So one thing you're seeing here is I've switched to the other side of the star. And what I'm doing is, instead of continuing on to quilt this section, I started and went to the side here. So basically I started and went to the left, and now I'm starting and going to the right, and I'm working my way back to the center. The reason I do that is I found that for me, if I were to come to my center and then continue going this way, my waves tend to kind of bend this way, and then it gets all bunched up and it doesn't look even from side to side. So once I've hit my middle, rather than continue on with these points, what I do is I start and come to the side here and then work my way back down to the center. And that helps it be more evenly distributed from one side of the block to the other. So you can see that there really isn't anything hard about what I'm doing. I'm just kind of wiggling up and down. It just is, you know, knowing where you're going next and where you've been before. And that, once you get that, you're good. All right, so that is my second to last diamond to get for this one. So what I need to do here is tie my threads off and start again. And I just did that all throughout everything. All right, now we're getting into the swirl. So when you are doing a background swirl, you have to kind of keep in mind your scale, because you are going to be doing essentially 12 or so inches of the quilt at a time, and you want the scale of your swirl to be the same here as it is for this pass. So what I do is I just kind of try to keep in mind of what I did previously, which you can see up top a little bit. And I'm just coming in to do the center of the swirl, hitting a point. I kind of pause a little bit at the center and then go back out. I quilt on an APQS Lenny, which has a stitch regulator, so I don't have to worry about a bunch of stitches building up there and causing problems, because it will automatically slow down if I slow down and speed up if I speed up. So that is really helpful to have if you're looking for something like that. If you are doing this on your home sewing machine, you are going to have to manually control the length of those stitches by how fast you're going in relation to how fast your machine is going. And we cover all of that in the Intro to Free Motion Quilting video. But you can see I just passed through where one of these corners are. Basically, it's really easy to just kind of quilt up into the point where the points match and then continue on to hit it. So essentially, we're able to quilt like from the top. Let me scoot this up. So here's our block half here. So we have here, this is the section that I'm able to quilt. So I'm not able to go under here, and I'm not able to go above there. So I need to travel, basically like hit this whole side and then come up and then hit this entire section and then keep on going. So you're kind of just surrounding your blocks. And a lot of times I will load the quilt sideways like that, just because it makes it a lot easier to quilt it all in one section. This star, for example, would have been more challenging to do, or I guess I could have done it the other way. It just, the pieces would go this way instead of, you know, all the buildup would be here and here instead of vertically like this. So it really is just the decisions that you want to make as a quilter and what is going to make life the easiest for you. And that's kind of how I go with it there. But it was really easy. This was the vertical row here. And so in my mind, that made a lot of sense to quilt it that way. All right, so here you can see I'm not able to go all the way down there. I'm kind of stopping where the edge of that row is. And you can see that I'm going kind of below, and I think we're going to see me pass through here in a second too. And I tend to do all my swirls facing in the same direction. It just works a little better in my brain to keep track of it that way. I tend to screw myself up if I try to switch directions. One thing I try not to do, but I'm not always successful in, is not quilt in a straight line. When I'm doing these, it's really easy to just kind of go boom, 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 boom across there. All right, so here you can see that I'm going straight across where those points are, and I am going a little bit below where the row is because you don't want to kind of create a stark line where you can see that all these were like underneath where the row was, and then all these are above. Like on these ones here, I crossed over a smidge, and I do like to do that. Have some a little below, some a little above. That way you can incorporate that as I then roll and do the next row. So it's not as obvious where my passes were, and that's really helpful. Now, if you're doing this on your home sewing machine, you wouldn't necessarily have to do that. You could fill in like all of it, but it kind of is dependent on how large your throat space is. If you've got a sit down mid-arm, I mean, the possibilities are pretty endless because you have a lot of space. If you're working on a small home sewing machine, then you have to be really judicious, and it's a lot harder to work with it. But I have done free motion quilting on a lap size quilt about this size and have it not be awful. So that is doable. You just have to keep in mind that, you know, maybe you don't want to quilt for more than an hour or so at a time because that might be a little hard on your back because you're moving everything around. For this one, it took me about 45 minutes per pass, and I had 4 passes to do the wavy line and then fill in the background with the swirl. So I got my entire lap size quilt done in about 3 hours, which is pretty good. Essentially, we were trying to get this done before Thanksgiving so that we could all enjoy time with our families and have all of our email content prepped up and ready to go, and video content. So, you know, I wanted to do something that like both highlighted the block, but also wasn't going to take an obscene amount of time. So that eliminated ruler work right away. Even just going over to travel, that would have made it take a lot longer. But to be able to just kind of follow the lines of this, that really accentuates the block. And then going with a small scale swirl on the outside helps sort of tampen this down so that way the block pops and it works really well. Also, one thing you might notice if you ever get your quilts judged, here we go, we're gonna pass through again. So you can see that, you know, you just go straight through. That's why it's important to get those points nice, because it gives you a nice area to just travel over. But back to my train of thought before I got distracted. If you are getting your quilts judged ever, sometimes they'll say like the density of the quilting didn't match. So like maybe you went all out on your star like I did, but then you had really loose quilting in your background. That's something that you might get dinged on from a quilt judge. So I wanted to make sure that my density matched. And since this is rather dense, I wanted this part to be rather dense as well. And so I wanted to make sure also for wear and drape, it also is nice to have equal density of your quilting, because otherwise it might wear and the batting could shift differently over time if you quilt at different densities. So, but basically, I mean, this allowed me to get the quilt done in about 3 hours. That's not bad for quilting a lap size quilt. In my opinion, I know at one time I saw a social media post where someone was like, just loaded my 4th quilt of the day. And I'm like, that's not great quilting if you just got 4 quilts loaded in a day. That is wham, bam, thank you, man, giant meander situation. And, you know, if you're doing charity quilts and you just quantity over quality is what you're aiming for, then fine, that's okay. But to me, I probably took, I don't know how many hours to piece this, but way more than 3. And so I don't feel like you need to rush the quilting. I feel like you should take the quilting the time that it needs in order to elevate your quilt and the block and really just have some fun with it. One other thing that I did with this quilt that was different than normal is I used a pink thread throughout. It's like a little baby pink. It's partially because I still haven't been able to get white thread from my supplier, but also I wanted to be able to not have to change threads all the time because that adds to the time of the quilting. And I really thought I wouldn't like it, but I really enjoy how it looks because the pink looks really great in with the fabric. It just kind of accentuates everything. But in the background, this is a plain white background. So you have to be confident in your stitching that it's going to look good, which I am with the swirl and the long arm. I do very well with the swirl there. It's like one of my go-tos. I use it all the time. Not so great on the domestic. There it's a little bit more choppy there. But on here, it looks really good. And so I really like how it looks because it almost makes it look like a print. It adds a little bit of dimension to it in terms of color and then also the texture. And I think it is really fun and kind of makes it look like it's its own design and adds to it. Like I had not used a solid white fabric, like I also added like a teeny tiny little light print to it. So I really like how that looks, and I might use it more in the future when I've got a solid background because I think that I really enjoy how it turned out. I don't know how that would have been if I hadn't gone so dense with the quilting, but the way it is now, it really looks more like a print than it does quilting stitches. So it's very fun. All right, well, I think maybe we can just watch the rest of it on like a speed up situation because you're just gonna see me doing more of the same thing where I'm coming in and going out and weaving my way around. And like right here, you can see that I'm trying not to go in a straight line. I'm kind of going more at a diagonal so that it's not so obvious that I went here, 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 here. That's boring. You know, it's better if you can kind of move around a little bit, but also be careful not to quilt yourself into a corner. Like right here, I'm coming up and I know that I have to transfer over where that point is. So I want to make sure that I don't quilt in that until the very end. So I'm working my way around to fill in the rest of it, and then I can come out and transfer over. So that's kind of the things you want to keep in mind is where have I been? Where am I going? Have I filled everything in equally? Can I make sure that I'm not doing this in a straight back and forth line? In this case, it's kind of nice because I can follow the diagonals of the triangles and then keep your scale consistent as you're going from pass to pass, to make sure that those swirls are about the same size from row to row, and then also that the density matches whatever you've done in the center of the star. But like I said, I love treating the background separately than whatever I've done in the block. It helps define it a little bit more and helps highlight the piecing that you've done, and I really love how this one turned out. So go check out Stashin with Stephanie over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com, Remember, if you sign up before the end of the month, you can get your first bundle shipment around the 22nd of December. So a nice little holiday present to yourself. If you wait until the 1st of December to sign up or later, then you're looking at January 22nd for your first bundle to arrive, but you get access to all the free patterns right away. You get access to your 20% off Stashin with Stephanie fabric right away. So you can get this kit and save, and you can get additional fabric to go with it as well. And it essentially is going to allow you to quilt for 20% off with free patterns all year long. So if you are a deal hunter or you are trying to make sure that you keep your quilting budget in check with inflation, this is a really good club to be a part of because you get constant inspiration, constant video tutorials to help you through it all, and access to so much content for your patterns to work through that stash, and then also discounts every single month, both in the bundle we send you and if you choose to get additional fabric to turn that bundle into a quilt kit or whatever it is that you have in mind. So I hope you guys enjoy that, and until next time, happy quilting.